So for the endocrine section, instead of just the one slide that's listed in the lab manual, we'll actually have 4 slides of different endocrine organs. This one here is the pancreas. It shows it at the low power magnification. We've seen this slide before when we viewed it for digestive system. At the time when we were looking at it for digestive system, we were focusing on the pancreatic acini, all of these cells out here that are putting out the pancreatic enzymes. Now we're focusing on these bleached out areas that we see here, known as the pancreatic islets. These pancreatic islets, and again here's a zoomed up version of one right here, put out various hormones. You need to know the hormones and you need to know the cells that produce them. So beta cells putting out insulin and then what insulin does, alpha cells putting out glucagon, and delta cells or D cells putting out somatostatin. This is just a photograph of the activity plaque that you have for the endocrine system. Again, showing kind of a macroscopic view in the center, but then more of a zoomed up view along the periphery. We've got the pituitary gland here. You need to know both the adenohypophysis and the neurohypophysis, the anterior part and the posterior part. Thyroid gland on the anterior side. Seen from the posterior side, we can see the parathyroid here. See the adrenal gland with both the cortex towards the outside and the medulla on the inside, pancreatic islet, ovary, and testis. This is the second of the 4 slides that you need to know for endocrine system. This is the adrenal gland seen at low power magnification. And with the adrenal gland, technically you can actually see both medulla, as we see in the lower right, and cortex in the upper left. And that's the level that you'll need to know. But in fact, you can see 3 different zones within the cortex as well. We won't require that, but you'll know when you look through the book that there are 3 different zones, and you could see that in the microscope. But we'll only require adrenal cortex and medulla. Notice at the end of the endocrine exercise, you do have a number of hormones that you need to know, and you need to know their function and where they come from. And you'll notice that I believe we have one from the cortex and one from the medulla. Here is the pituitary gland, both the anterior or adenohypophysis and the posterior or the neurohypophysis. The difference in identifying the pituitary gland from the adrenal glands is, notice we have this nice break here in between the darker pink area and the lighter pink area. So the neurohypophysis here is actually the posterior part, and it's made up of neural tissue. It's actually an extension of the brain, neurons that are coming down through the stalk of the infundibulum from the hypothalamus and releasing 2 hormones here. On the anterior side, this is actually glandular tissue, more similar to other endocrine glands, and this is where the remaining 7 hormones come from. This slide, again very distinct, is going to be the thyroid gland. So with the thyroid gland, what we have is an interesting kind of globular structure here that's called the colloid. The colloid here is a material where the thyroid hormone is actually stored. So here we see a lipid-based material that's stored inside of what's called a follicle. So this round structure is a follicle, each one of these, and it's surrounded by follicular cells. So here are the follicular cells. They actually produce the thyroxine or the thyroid hormone. There are 2 forms of the thyroid hormone. There's triiodothyronine as well. But in essence, they are stored here in the colloid. So you need to know colloid, you need to know follicular cells. In the thyroid, there are parafollicular cells as well that produce calcitonin, but we won't worry about that. So for the thyroid gland slide, we need to know follicular cells, and we need to know colloid that's all stored in the center there.